My name is David Nelson. I'm one of the emerging technology track leaders along with Robert Rentsch, who will be managing the chat. Just want to remind you these sessions will be recorded. All of the attendees will be on mute, and if you have a question, which we really encourage you to as we are having a panel discussion, please send that chat to all attendees. If you send it just to the host, that'll go to Lily. So we'd appreciate you send it to all attendees, and then we can pick that up and ask those questions. First of all, I just want to thank our sponsors for GPDIS, ANARC, Kubatech, Transmagic, and then the 2020 partners, Boeing, SimData, Elysium, Northrop Grumman, Parker, and PDES. And just for a little history and focus of the Global Product Data Interoperability Summit, it was formed back in 2009. It's a consolidation of the data exchange and SOA deep dives. I started in the SOA deep dives, I think, literally about 2005. So it's been about 15 years, and it's been an awesome conference. And again, we mainly work with the emerging tech track. The function of GPDIS is a communication hub for industry principles and to foster knowledge. So I think you'll see that in this panel as we have industry knowledge, both in our emerging tech and then also in the A&D industry. So the theme this year is the great race of digital transformation. So we'll be talking about digital transformation, the emerging technology, as well as the A&D industry. So here's our session titled How Emergent Technology is Transforming the A&D Industry. And then I will go through here in a second and introduce each of our panelists, and they will be able to introduce themselves a little deeper and also talk a little bit about how they come into this panel. So Rusty, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
All right, you want to introduce yourself and take about 3 to 5 minutes of kind of how you fit within the discussion for today?
Sure. So I'm the Vice President for Technical Operations and Standards with the Aerospace Industries Association. I've been with the association for a little more than 15 years, and I guess my area within technical operations has included digitalization, interoperability, and emerging technologies. So really looking forward to being part of the panel.
Excellent, thank you. And then from the Industrial Internet Consortium, just a little background there. I've been part of the IIC since 2015. I chaired the Innovation Task Group, and now I'm part of the Manufacturing End User Leadership Council, and that's where I was introduced a little deeper to Jim and Bassam on the digital transformation work that they're doing. So Bassam, did you want to start on this slide, and then I'll jump down a couple for Jim?
Yes, thank you, David. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So my name is Bassam Zarkout. I'm the founder of IGN Power, a consulting practice in the IoT space and digital transformation. I'm a mechanical engineer by education, and at the IIC, I am the co-chair of the Digital Transformation Working Group. Jim and I have worked extensively on a white paper called Digital Transformation Industry. We'll be highlighting some of its findings in this paper. I look forward to participating in this panel. The diagram below, by the way, illustrates the overall story of digital transformation as we have defined it. It's a journey that goes from the mounting challenges all the way to the better outcomes, with 3 groups of factors underpinning it: business factors, technology factors, and trustworthiness factors. In the paper, we discuss all these characteristics of digital transformation. Thank you.
And then, Jim, do you want to talk to the key technologies and introduce yourself?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you very much for that introduction. So I'm the other guy.
on the slide that Bassam just presented, formerly co-chair of the Digital Transformation Working Group at the Industrial Internet Consortium, and my day job is I'm a founding partner at a company called Transformer Insights, an analyst and consultancy focusing on digital transformation. And the reason we pulled this slide out is because when Bassam and I led a piece of work at the IIC in terms of identifying the most impactful technologies that were enabling digital transformation, and we wrote a white paper about them. And this is the list of technologies that we came up with. So it's around edge, what's happening at the edge, and particularly data ops at the edge, and MEC and so on, hyperconnectivity, the emerging 5G and LPWA and so on, data security and trustworthiness, AI and analytics, digital twin is a key technology, distributed ledger, human-machine interface, particularly AR and VR, and AR particularly in the aerospace context, additive manufacturing was another one, data sharing between parties and with associated metadata and factors around that data, industrial IoT, of course, autonomous robotic systems, innovation at the IT-OT boundary, and how these OT devices are being integrated to IT, micropower generation, servitization of assets, so rendering assets to service, and new payment platforms. And those are the technology groupings that we came up with an eye on industry as a whole. So that's not just aerospace and defense, it's all industry. And this was the list of the most impactful technologies that we came up with. And each one of those is covered in a white paper, which you'll find at the Industrial Internet Consortium. But that's Bassam and my background, I guess, for this conversation. And this
Jim, here's a link to the white paper, just so people can see that.
Absolutely, and that is exactly, that is the white paper. In that white paper, you'll find some of the background for digital transformation as Bassam ran through, in terms of it being a journey and how you frame that journey. There's also some instructional or some first steps and some process for describing how to adopt digital transformation, and there's a review of each one of those technologies that I went through in terms of what it is, what it enables, additional resources available at the Industrial Internet Consortium, and the impact that it can have in industry. So that's a good paper to circle back with if any part of this conversation piques your interest, I guess.
Thank you. And then Robert, do we have Dr. Ravi?
No, Dave, unfortunately, Dr. Ravi has not able to join yet. We're monitoring and reaching out to him in the background. So let's proceed, and we'll have him join when he arrives. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and open the panel. I know that we have an international group here. Dr. Ravi is from India. Jim, you're calling in from the UK. And I looked at your bios, and it looks like we've got almost 100 years of industry knowledge on the panel today, so that's exceptional. Just wanted to start with, I know there's a list here of about 15 technologies, but what are the top 3 emerging technologies that you're tracking? And any one of you 3 can jump in and get started.
Let me take a first stab. This is Bassam. I think AI and analytics is definitely, I mean, top 3 is difficult. I would go for a top 5 or top 6.
That's why I made it hard. I wasn't going to make it easy.
Yeah, so top 3, AI and analytics definitely, security definitely, hyper connectivity definitely, but it's really difficult to choose which top 3 digital twins. Depends, it's highly dependent on the use case, I think.
Yes, and certainly in an aerospace context, certainly I'd agree that AI is one of the most impactful. The amount of things that can be done with AI and system efficiencies that can be improved, and network efficiencies and all sorts of routing and supply chains. The applications of artificial intelligence are huge, so that can have a huge impact. But if you look at the operational part of aerospace, things like augmented reality, so just enabling or effectively de-skilling service engineer jobs, or better enabling them to get access to support resources and additive manufacturing, to print parts where you need them, when you need them. So from that operational perspective, you've got those things, and I'd say that 5G and private networks and edge are strong enablers there. But you've also got to look at the universe, the world outside aerospace, because aerospace supports the wider economy. And there's all sorts of things going on there. So if you look at increasing levels of manufacturing automation, as manufacturing is increasingly automated, more and more of the cost of manufacturing becomes dollar-denominated assets as opposed to people. That means it makes less sense to move it to a location of cheap labor. And what that pushes is more near sourcing of hardware equipment. Conversely, it makes more sense to push the service elements of production in terms of quality control, day-to-day monitoring. It makes more sense to push those to other places in the world where wages are cheaper. So you've got this whole reconfiguring of an economy going on as well, sort of outside of the aerospace space. Plus all of the clients and all of the users of aerospace are also changing the way that they operate. So it really is quite as Bassam said, it's very hard to choose the top few, and it also depends on perspective and application.
And Rusty, I think the presentation I saw you give last, you were doing some work around distributed ledger. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So we recognized a few years ago that in order for the aerospace and defense industry to be successful in implementing distributed ledger technology, it came to our awareness that really needed to have a consortium approach to identify what are priorities for use of distributed ledger technology, where it would bring most value to our industry, and how do we interface with other industry groups or consortiums and technology providers. So we've been working. We've created a consortium which we call the Aerospace and Defense Distributed Ledger Technology Consortium, which right now has key players from commercial industry that caters to defense, but we also have defense participants who are currently on the consortium. We're actively seeking out others to join as we go forward, and we see there's specific use cases that our industry feels are high priority, such as just to give you a few, track and trace of parts, part authenticity, certification of maintenance and operational personnel, transfer of aircraft contract terms, and additive manufacturing. Each of those use cases on a high level, have let's say a relationship with each other. We are currently working on doing a proof of concept for a sub-use case of track and trace of parts and terms and conditions of contracts, and that's taking the defense DD250 process and applying distributed ledger technology and showing that the benefits that the technology can bring to our industry. But we are also looking at data security, not so much in the distributed ledger, but from a regulatory perspective. We're actively involved in helping define the CMMC, which is the cybersecurity maturity matrix. We're also involved in digital we're identifying what our industry needs to do for digital twin, digital thread, and providing guidance to our industry on how to do that. And that's on a high level. But
thank you.
I'll leave it at that for now.
Robert, do we have any chat questions that have come in yet?
We do. It's my question. It's fine. You know, this is really a good one. This is one I always struggle with. So the question I posted is, how does one address the interdependencies of these technologies to achieve an operational system? And like for example, connectivity. So where is it? So when hyperconnectivity is a critical aspect, and so if we just emphasize artificial intelligence and analytics, well, there's a key aspect around analytics is acquiring the data, which needs the hyperconnectivity in your IoT devices to be the sensors to generate the data that you then analyze, but it has to be moved through a hyperconnected network. And so I'm just asking our esteemed panelists, how do you address this the interdependencies of the technology?
Can I take a punt at that one? It's Jim here. So I think the biggest problem with the interdependencies of technologies is our propensity to give them names. The reality is that these things are just techniques, they're technologies, they're things that can be picked up and combined. They're not completely isolated things that you have to figure out how to fit together. What they are is different perspectives on technological process or progress. And at the end of the day, if you want to put a solution together, this is a toolbox, and there's different things you can pull out of it and put together a solution. So it's not so much about making them work together, but what it is about identifying which of the technologies are most impactful for your situation, your specific situation, and kind of getting under the hood of the top few, getting to understand those and figuring out what solutions can do when they are enabled by those technologies.
So do you take kind of the Lego approach to that, Jim?
Yeah, pretty much.
Blocks? Okay.
Pretty much, yes. These things aren't mutually exclusive. You can't go away and buy an AI solution. It's part of it's a part of a much bigger thing. And the same thing applies to all of these things, or all of these individual technologies. They're useful labels for discussing things and the kind of vector of impact that they have. But at the end of the day, they're all implemented as part of an integrated solution which draws on many different domains.
This is Bassam. Just one added comment is that, as Jim mentioned, these are components or technologies that you use to build out a solution. And as you are utilizing these tools and techniques, you need to keep an eye on the overall requirements that the overall solution has to be, for example, trustworthy. And what does it mean for that solution to be trustworthy? If you have distributed ledgers in it, if you have AI, what about the ethical issues of using AI, and so on and so forth. So this is not only a technology problem, but also an overall solution concept problem and specifically overall requirements for the solution.
Well, this is Rusty. I think, I guess I look at it from two ways. One is from a back office, front office operation. Connectivity hyperconnectivity is important. Usually we try to address that through higher levels of interoperability, so that when you're transferring data from A to B, B already knows the language that you're talking about through some type of either a standards-based approach or a middleware approach. I think it's even more critical when you're part of your operation, or when you're operating things that don't necessarily can't pull over and wait for the next download. When we get into urban air mobility and we start seeing more congestion in tight urban settings, you're going to be relying on not only autonomous command and control, but also some type of a network command and control instructions that are going to have to be instantaneous. And so I think from a safety perspective, that's critical.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because we're doing some work here with, I work on autonomous behaviors with mobility on demand and the urban air mobility, and the whole thing around trusted autonomy, and how do we make that certifiable and trusted, and like you said, that's a key aspect moving forward. Any other questions coming in, Robert?
No, that's the question we have for the moment. I'll go out and see if I can get some of our participants to come up with a few questions. So I think if we go back to our questions for the panelists, we can continue to move along with those.
Great. So one of the areas we're also looking at is, with these emerging technologies, what are some of the strategies that you're seeing to fill the skills gap? And how would you advise some of those on the webcast about necessary skills and ways to go about that?
Oh, I guess this is Rusty. I'll talk first.
Yeah.
We've AIA. We've been highly supportive of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. From pre-K onward. I think we have quite a bit of concern that the capacity of capable and capable individuals coming into our industry. There's two. I would say there's two humps in our life cycle of resources, and the first hump is we see that individuals coming in leave into the A&D industry, leave within the first 5 years, and then we have this other wave of people who have been in the industry for 25, 30 years, and they're coming out. They're already preparing for retirement, and we're worried about the knowledge retention that we're going to lose through retirement. And so we're looking, we're trying to get both qualified and also eligible. And I say eligible because not everyone coming out of the university is eligible to work in the A&D industry due to security clearances and their current status in terms of citizenship. And so we see that there's also a lot of competition out there that are also looking to hire individuals that are either coming out of a bachelor's, master's, or PhD degree. And so we're very, we're trying to do what we can to encourage students to not only go into engineering but high-tech careers, and that includes the digital realm. In this year, we've been studying the impacts of COVID-19 on enrollments, and it's a challenging year. I think we've lost a lot of capable students that were considering going into either an engineering or some type of a high-tech academic career, and they're just not. There's about I would say probably a 20 to 25% drop off in enrollments right now. So high concern for us.
Yeah. Jim or Bassam on the journey.
Yeah.
What do you?
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was going to say go for it, Bassam.
Well, the aerospace and defense industry have a specific culture, and obviously the people who are retiring, you're going to lose people with expertise about how to live and survive in that culture. The challenge here is that a lot of these technologies that are shown here on the screen are new technologies, and it takes time for new staff and experienced staff to understand how to harmonize and utilize these technologies in an A&D context. How to comply with the safety regulations, how to comply with the security or reliability objectives, and so on. That is a challenge. So it's not about only having technical people to know how to put these pieces together, but how to put them together in compliance with the culture and regulations that are in place in the aerospace and defense industry.
Thanks. So it's Jim here. So I'd highlight that this is not a challenge that is faced by the aerospace industry only. This is a challenge across all industry. And if you think of what's happening with these new types of technology, you hand that over to a project team. It's very easy to find a project team leader who has 10 years of experience of leading hardware development, or 10 years of development of experience of leading software development, or 10 years of IT or IoT or connectivity. But finding somebody with 10 years in each of those spaces is kind of nearly impossible. So you're really looking for a multi-skilled person you've got to pull into these project teams. The other thing you've got going on is when you take the concepts, particularly of artificial intelligence and Internet of Things and many of these other software services which are on this slide here, what you're doing is you're implementing those quite often onto hardware. And hardware is developed with a V model. So you specify it more and more and more, and then when you finish specifying it, you build it. The stuff that sits on top of that, the IoT, the AI services, are working on an agile model. So it's quick iteration, fast fail, trying things, yes, and developing over time. These things fundamentally don't fit together. So there's a real challenge there. One of the things, and I'm going to plug the IIC here actually. So training is a way forward. There are a lot of organizations that are actually working on training and working on training in a way to train the overall industry rather than just push their services. This is quite altruistic. I think quite a lot of companies are actually trying to make all boats rise on a rising tide. One of the things that the IIC has is a Project Explorer tool where you can go to that tool, you can plug in the dimensions of your project and understand the profile of complexity of your project. So in terms of whether it's multi-jurisdictional, whether you're dealing with particularly onerous regulations, whether you have to include cellular and satellite connectivity, whether you're rolling out millions of devices or just hundreds of devices. These are all different dimensions of complexity. And what it comes back with, it says, well, your project is complex for these reasons, and therefore these are some of the resources you should look for to understand that complexity. And also take into account when you're putting together that project team. So that's available, well, that's for free on the Industrial Internet Consortium website under the Resource Hub. So have a look at that as well.
Thank you. Robert, anything else coming in?
No, Dave, I'm sorry. We don't have any questions as of yet. But I have a question that I would like to ask. I'm very curious about this topic. So my question has to do with, and it kind of touches on where we were just a few minutes ago. Let's say we've got some absolutely brilliant individuals who just graduated from college, are now faced with this disruption we call digital transformation that's occurring across not only the aerospace and defense, but other industries as well. So I would like to ask the panelists, what perspective and how would an individual who's just graduated from college, what should be their emphasis, in the first 3 to 5 years? And then also the question is, what if you've been in your career for, let's say, 10 to 15 years, and now you're faced with this digital transformation? what area of emphasis and what path should an individual take to be successful with these digital transformation activities that are going on?
This is Bassam. I think it's very important for whether it's a fresh graduate or a person with experience, is to understand what does digital transformation mean and what is being transformed. And is what is being transformed the business model? Is it the operation? Is it the way you manufacture, etc.? And work it backwards from that point, as opposed to going from the bottom up and looking at technologies and understanding how you can assemble them together. It's not how you can assemble them. It's to what objective and what does it mean to transform something. So it's important for individuals to understand that aspect.
Yeah, I tend to take a similar perspective to that, to Bassam. In terms of where to focus, I think it's the business acumen. It's understanding the business impact, how a business case works, how markets get impacted, how you roll out new solutions and products, etc. So understanding that whilst maintaining an overview and understanding of emerging technology, to the extent that you can question people and you can have sensible conversations with them about it. But I don't think that if you're looking to go a long way in an industry, you probably don't want to specialize in any specific technology. Within 10 years, these technologies will be commonplace. The thing to do is to understand the portfolio and what can be done with them and how to make that happen.
Well, this is Rusty. I think there's, I agree with the other panelists, but I would say in a broader sense, they have to understand the business. Coming right out of their academic career, that they probably have, unless they've taken the initiative to go get internships within aerospace and defense, and if they, whether they have or they haven't, I would recommend someone coming out of their academic, just right out of that university, to get into like a rotational program where they spend 6 months in a engineering, 6 months in business area, 6 months somewhere else, and learn the business, and then understand where where can they tie things together using digital transformation. I think students coming out of university probably are definitely more accustomed to digital environments than I was when I graduated as a mechanical engineer. Of course, I had a calculator. I didn't use a slide rule, but that was about the extent of my digital knowledge, is how to use a calculator. I would say that one of the challenges for someone right out of school is they have these wonderful ideas on how can we advance what areas of emerging technologies can we get into. The problem is convincing those who are, say, more have more longevity in the industry, but also have the budget and the decision making. How do those new kids on the block convince their management that this will be there is a business case for emerging into this technology? I think that's one of the challenges. And from an experienced person, who's been in a career for a while, it's relearning and continuous learning and applying, learning and having the open mind of how to, keep away from that. We've done it this way. We've always done it this way. It works. Why should I change? But keep an open mind of how this emerging technology can one, increase productivity, and two, show an impact on the bottom line.
And just to follow up to that, Rusty, how do you see the A&D industry different? And I know Jim and Bassam, you're across industries, so maybe where are they the same and where are the differences?
I see it. Well, for A&D, you know, I would say we're highly regulated industry. Understanding the regulations and, you know, having the wherewithal to push back on regulations that are obsolete, that have been, you know, no longer needed because we can now do things better and faster using digital transformation. How do we change those regulations? I think the other difference for A&D is the security of information, data security. I would, you know, there's, you know, all industries have, you know, concern about intellectual property. Ours, you've got to put on top of that, you know, ITAR and EARS regulations. How do you know, because that you've now moved to the cloud, and where's that server that all my information lives on now? Is it in the United States? Is it in China? Or does it matter? So those are the types of things that A&D is, you know, I think maybe not entirely unique, but I would say over and above other industries, those are the types of areas that we think about.
Okay. Any update from the industry side, Jim and Bassam? And then I think Robert's pinging me. We got some questions coming in.
This is Bassam. Well, for the aerospace and defense industry, obviously you have the safety of the end result that carries significant weight in what you build and how you build it. So safety is extremely important. Obviously, it's not the only industry that has significant safety concerns, but it is one of those industries where safety requirements are extremely important. Safety of the operation and safety of the end result that you are building. That's the first point. The second point is, in this diagram, I would replace the word data security with security plain and simple, because it's not only about the security of the data, but it's the security of the software, because a lot of the systems now are software defined. Their functionality is software defined, and you have to secure the software as well as the data that is produced and consumed within these systems.
Yeah, agreed.
So relative to other industries, the thing that strikes me about aerospace, I mean, there's the regulations and the life and death aspects of it, and so on. But fundamentally, the expense, the costs of things, you know, just general day-to-day operations, and the reality is that many of the digital transformation initiatives, or any technological project, in fact, they tend to cost in and happen on the basis of a business case. And if you have a more expensive business, it is easier to get these things to cost in. And in many ways, I would see that the aerospace industry adopting many of these digital transformation technologies earlier than many other industries because of the expense and because of the complexity. So, for instance, things like using augmented reality to support the construction and servicing of aircraft. Now, that's something which happened in the aerospace industry before it appears in other sectors. Additive manufacturing of parts because it saves weight. That's something which happened firstly in the aerospace, in fact, probably firstly in the space industry, then the aerospace industry. Other than that, it's Formula One racing, and very few other places have really areas caught up to that yet. Power by the hour in terms of jet engines. That was that was the aerospace industry taking a lead effectively in servitization, and frankly, it's. Well, I'm not quite sure when power by the hour came in, but certainly 10 years and maybe 20 years ago. And these are concepts which the rest of the industry is coming up with. So frankly, aerospace, from an external aerospace perspective, aerospace is almost in some ways a window on where the future will be.
Excellent. Robert, you got a couple questions for us now?
I do. So let me go to the first question that's come in here. Just a moment, I have to bring my chat screen back up here. So in consideration of digital transformation, one of the expected outcomes is doing work differently. And in consideration that people are going to be expected to do work differently, how is digital transformation going to achieve its full potential?
Well, this is Bassam. I mean, the best way to look at this is start from the end, and that is to define what is the outcome you are trying to achieve. Is this a do-or-die situation, and whether you meet that overall objective within a certain timeline will help you survive or not, for example. This could be an important impetus, and that's how you would work it backwards and define what is it you need to transform and what is it you need to change. It is not, it is, I would not look at it as simply, well, I will be changing the way I work only to produce the same things but better or more efficiently. That's not transformation. Transformation is when you are changing the outcome and work it backwards as to what are the things you need to change, and in terms of the way you work, in terms of the way you design things or assemble things.
I kind of have I guess, a idea of, digital transformation is it's a constant. We're yes, you might have a particular goal in mind for the near, maybe 1 or 2 years out to achieve a certain level of transformation, but it doesn't stop there. I think it's a continuum. So who knows where it's going to lead us?
Yeah.
It's not
we're all in it.
There's no fixed end. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in it now.
Yeah.
It's among us. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, this year's a good example. In March of this year, our policy at AIA was, basically we didn't have a remote work policy, or we did. Anytime after 5 or on the weekends, you can work remotely. It's all you want, and have at it. But, we changed that quickly, and now just the management just opened their eyes and say, hey, we can get work done if we don't have an office. So this is a good example. It came to us. It was a forcing function. COVID was a forcing function for it, but I think that was a step function towards a higher level of digital transformation. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, good responses. Let me give you the next question here as we move along here. So this comes from Mr. Doug Cheney, and his question is, how do we inspire students in science and technology degree programs to work in the aerospace and defense industry?
Proliferate science fiction movies on different networks. It's a cool industry. I'm still amazed that these things fly over my head and don't just don't drop like rocks. So I'm always awe-inspired, seeing airplanes fly, but also being on board one. It's just it's inspiring, through any type of media we can, whether it's movies, if it's on hands-on activities. Those are really inspiring. AIA, we've had this rocket contest for almost 20 years, and just that alone is it's an organized STEM program, and it's a contest, and it's a national contest, and it's very inspiring for students in I would say 5th through 12th grade, and I think it attracts a lot of people to the industry.
I definitely agree with Rusty. I'm revealing my age now, but I got attracted to the aerospace industry during the Moon program, and I studied mechanical engineering because of that. I never worked in the aerospace industry, but I closely followed that industry, and yes, definitely, I agree with you.
So I think we got about 4 minutes left. Anybody, Robert, anything else, or do you want to? We can just go around and.
Yeah, I think we just do after concluding remarks by the panelists, because if you got me going, we'd be here the rest of the day. So I'll stop and let the panelists.
Especially as we go into 2021 and coming out of all this, any concluding thoughts?
I just love it. It's just very interesting to me, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to help move it along.
Yeah, I think we're here at a fascinating time. We have an opportunity to change. We've had a disrupted year, but there is an opportunity to change. There's a whole range of new technologies coming along, being more disruptive than many times in the last few decades. So there's a great opportunity here. And I think the thing to do is to figure out what can be done with these technologies, what the truly transformed future looks like. That's not just incremental change from today, but how do we really want to do this properly in the future, and actually figuring out what that long-term vision looks like, and then figuring out how to get there. I think there's a huge opportunity to do it. And actually, if it was something that I wanted to do, probably one of the most interesting places to do it would be in the aerospace and defense industry.
Absolutely.
I would add to that that it's also a wonderful opportunity to coach the new generation to understand these technologies and how they can be leveraged to empower and enable this transformation that we're seeking. So I think that will be an exciting aspect of what we're trying to do.
Excellent. Well, I just want to thank Jim and Bassam and Rusty, and thank you for bringing your expertise and experience. And I think we've got links to your white papers, and we can get that out to anybody who's interested in the amazing work you guys have done. Robert, any last-minute thoughts?
Yeah, no, this has been absolutely. I've got a page and a half of notes of things to follow up with, and I thought it was inspiring. I'll just say that it was inspiring to hear gentlemen speak on your experience with technology, and I think it's I've benefited from it, and I hope everybody else has participated today. So again, thank you to those who've participated in the panel. So, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.